Welcome to AHRC TV's weekly roundup. In this week's program, Sri Lanka's cabinet abolishes the Executive Presidency. Cambodia's cyber law threatens democracy and freedom of expression. Burmese students remain in detention but suspend hunger strike on Aung San Suu Kyi's request. AHRC's latest folk school meeting, this time in Indonesia, has concluded. Zafrullah Chowdhury speaks about his contempt of court accusations in Bangladesh. Welcome to AHRC TV's weekly roundup. I'm Josephina Bergston. We start with some good news from Sri Lanka, where the cabinet has approved the president's proposal to abolish the executive presidency and to introduce a new electoral system, thereby returning the country to full democracy, including the separation of powers. At a cabinet meeting this week, presided over by President Maithripala Sirisena, a cabinet paper on abolishing the executive presidency and introducing a new constitution was presented and approved. Next, AHRC TV reports from Cambodia, where a newly released documentary film called Cyber Democracy, Cambodia, Kafka's Kingdom, directed by Ellen Grant, highlights the dangers of the Hun Sen regime's proposed cybercrime law that will impact democratic rights and freedom of expression in the country. Retired university lecturer Dr. Gafar Meth, who collaborated on the film, says that in the Kafkaesque Cambodia depicted in Ellen Grant's film, the ideal of political power alternating every few years between parties is alien. Dissent is treason, free expression is a threat, free and fair elections are antithetical to Hun Sen's continuation in power and are most unlikely to occur during his tenure. Hun Sen is today one of the world's longest-serving leaders. He has retained his post as Prime Minister for over 30 years, with the use of threats and intimidation. In these 3 decades, he has managed to accumulate control over the Cambodian executive, legislature, and judiciary. While Hun Sen has vowed to hold on to the seat of power until he's 74, that is 11 years from now, according to Dr. Meth, Cambodians have had enough of one-man, one-party rule. They are ready for change. Here is an excerpt of Ellen Grant's film, Cyber Democracy, Cambodia, Kafka's Kingdom.
A country known for corruption and political cronyism, today Cambodia is a battleground for the control of information. State-owned television and radio have shaped reality for the people of this tiny country for decades. A wealthy power elite controls Cambodia's political machine and its resources, its people, and the land. While its economy is one of the fastest growing in Asia, corruption is siphoning off much of the growth, and Cambodia remains one of the poorest nations in the world. About 1/3 live on less than $1 per day. But virtual assembly and cyber dissent are growing. Today, a young, informed, involved, and internet-connected population is finding new ways to challenge the status quo. The disparity between the stale propaganda presented on state-controlled media and the real-life experiences presented online and via sites like Facebook is fueling the ruling party's loss of credibility and amplifying the voice for change in Cambodia. Actions taken by authorities in 2012 suggest they had mastered the art of suppressing dissent in the streets and freezing out commentary over tightly controlled radio and television. Tackling the unruly frontier of cyberspace presented a new challenge and demanded new tactics to maintain control. It was clear that the game between oppressed and oppressors was changing. In May of 2012, the government announced its intent to draft laws to combat cybercrime. On its face, this could be perceived as an attempt to maintain the security and integrity of the Internet in Cambodia. Hacking, the theft of government secrets, industrial espionage, interception of banking records, and pornography are among the issues being addressed by countries around the world. An unofficial copy of the proposed bill that was leaked in April 2014 clearly shows that it goes far beyond legitimate concerns to protect the public, industry, and the government from criminals. The cyber law draft included vague provisions that strike at the heart of free speech and dissent, criminalizing activities that hinder the sovereignty and integrity of the Kingdom of Cambodia. Publications deemed to generate insecurity, instability, and threaten political cohesiveness, or deemed damaging to the cultural values of the society. The threat of incarceration, fines, and the confiscation of property makes it perilous to express a truth that differs from the official truth. It seems that among the most egregious cybercrimes is any attempt to disrupt the self-serving power base that controls the country. The future of cyber democracy in Cambodia is uncertain. Those in power are endeavoring to cripple the efforts of activists. Still, as information spreads about land grabbing, the forced evictions, and low wages and poor working conditions for factory workers, about the disregard for human rights, the calls for change are becoming louder. Cyber discourse and virtual assembly have kept Cambodians and the world informed and engaged in what is happening. Digital dissent has played an important part in exposing corruption and addressing civil liberties issues. Despite the potential for transparency and optimism, there is powerful resistance to change in Cambodia. Cambodia's institutions are imbued with the desperation of an entrenched power elite at risk of losing control. Online advocacy is the democracy movement in Cambodia. Cell phones are weapons for the digital documentation of injustice. Websites and blogs provide information and encourage involvement of Cambodian citizens and the international community, witnesses to an emerging reality that challenges the status quo.
AHRC TV now returns to Burma, where amidst the joy and celebration of the stunning NLD election victory, many students continue to linger in detention. The student arrests started with a violent crackdown on demonstrators in Letpadan earlier this year, when students protested against a controversial national election law passed by the government in 2014. 2 additional student leaders were arrested only 3 weeks ago, having managed to avoid the police for 7 months. Kya Ko Ko and Lin Tet Nang, who both played a leading role during the student protests, were tracked down and arrested on October 29. Their second court hearing is scheduled today, November 19. Other detained students who had been on hunger strike since October 23rd, demanding the release of all remaining political prisoners in Burma, have now provisionally stopped the hunger strike upon the request of Aung San Suu Kyi and other activist groups. Suu Kyi argues that since the election victory, problems must be minimized to ensure a smooth transfer of power. The AHRC has called on the authorities to immediately release the students who protested peacefully and democratically. Next, a short update from Jakarta, Indonesia, where the AHRC conducted a human rights folk school meeting between November 13 and 16. 22 participants, including activists from local and national human rights organizations such as Contras, legal aid groups, land right groups, community leaders, students and victims of human rights violations, attended the folk school. Topics discussed were varied and included discussions around protection of human rights defenders, UN advocacy, and building effective partnerships with the AHRC. During the folk school, participants also learned and practiced how to document cases and prepare urgent appeals. AHRC TV ends this week's Roundup with an excerpt from a recent interview with Bangladeshi Right Livelihood Award laureate Zafrullah Chowdhury, who was in Hong Kong recently to attend AHRC's annual meeting of Asian parliamentarians. Here is Mr. Chowdhury on his recent adventures in and out of court on charges of contempt. The charges stem from his public defense of David Bergman, a British journalist, who expressed his views on Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal, a special tribunal instituted to adjudicate on accusations of war crimes committed during the 1971 Independence War.
So my first contempt, I raised the issue in a television talk show that Salahuddin Qadir Chowdhury, he's a bad man, I know. I also condemn him, but he has got the right of fair trial. In our country, presently, the war crimes trial has been held. People, those who are involved in this, they have done a heinous thing. They're a very bad thing. They should be tried, but this should be proper trial. Kangaroo court cannot be accepted. My first contempt case, this. The first one. Then a journalist, David Bergman, a very important journalist, one of his papers, he raised the issue of the death figure of 1971, 3 million. He said this 3 million should be documented. The same issue I have raised in the past many times. There is a contempt against David Bergman. And he has been punished. He has been fined, contempt and other 50 citizens, including myself. We made a statement. We said, look, this is not fair. David Bergman, we consider government, a court should be tolerant. Court should allow the historian to write these things, like that's in his favor. And I think that it is not a contempt. For opening your freedom of expression doesn't fall under the category of contempt of court. Second important point that we raised: anybody convicted at the International Crime Tribunal are allowed for appeal. They can go to appeal to the higher court. But anybody convicted in contempt in the same court doesn't have the right to appeal. Judge Suomoto made the court against us. Another contempt against us. Everybody was relieved except me. I have been convicted because I'm a habitual contemptor. As I had a case before, so they cite the court says, look, this gentleman always try to have a go at the court, so we will not let him go. When the court pronounced this thing, so I stand up. I was defending myself. So I said, Mr. Judges, I am going to make appeal to the higher court. So please keep it in abeyance. He said, there is no chance. I said, why not? I'm going to appeal. Allow me to see whether I can really win or not. He said, no. Then I said, of course, Mr. Justice, you are misusing your power. However, I said, look, I will not stand up unless you give the order in writing. He said, we said so. I said, no, I want in writing. The police and other things, intimidation. 16 policemen came to catch. I said, don't touch me. If you touch me, I'm taking a note of your name. Everybody will be brought case for assault. This is my second contempt. Of course, after 1 hour when I came out, I said, the judges, when you are such intolerant, you do not expect any justice from them. And I'm not going to pay the fine, I'll make an appeal. They are mentally sick. But they are, however, in the Supreme Court, I fought the case, my conviction has been quashed. So I have been quashed. But there is a third case, for I call them if they are mentally sick. The judges are mentally sick, which is the wrong thing I did. Definitely, this is the wrong thing. I should not call the judges as a mentally sick. He said, look, you see, this gentleman is always a habitual contemptor. He insulted us. I said, look, but you put me to the dock. You have treated me unfairly. So like a judiciary, do not treat the human being with the respect. They are not learning how to talk people with the respect. So this is these sorts of intolerance. Court's intolerance is disgraceful.
That is all for this weekly roundup. For more on these and other issues, please visit www.humanrights.asia. Thank you for watching and see you again next week.